This is another Trucking Radio 24/7 podcast in association with New Zealand Trucking Magazine.
Trucking Radio 24/7. I'm Dave McCoid, editorial director at New Zealand Trucking Media, and it's been a while since we've had a catch up with my good mate and our good friend in Europe, Will Shires, editor of Commercial Motor Magazine. Will, how are you?
I'm good. You, Dave?
Yeah, no, fantastic. You're telling me that your summer's turning into the same summer we had, where it's like just pissing with rain all the time.
Yeah, I've never known such a wet August. It's terrible. I'm sitting in the car now, and you'll probably be able to hear the rain in a second. It's just about to really pour down.
And so August, so that's your June, July, August. That's your March, isn't it? So in terms of seasonal sort of a stuff. So yeah, you should be in the sweet spot of heat's coming off. The days are still long. The barbecue's still going. The beer's still drinking, but you can sleep at night.
Yeah, that hasn't happened at all. And I had a nice UK holiday as well in Norfolk, and it rained continually.
Oh, well, can I tempt you over here for the summer period? And
yeah, I wish
we can introduce you to some New Zealand amber rehydration. Hey, now, Daniel Asheville, the YouTube sensation, the boy
Yes.
that started his own business because he got sick of waiting for a skip truck or a concrete truck or something, and you've been to see him. You're going to give us a story on him. Give the listeners and the readers a quick rundown on it if they haven't seen it. I know Gav has, because I talked to Gav about it and said, have you not watched his stuff? He watches it all the time. So tell us about the story, Daniel Asheville.
Yeah, so it's Daniel Louisi, but the company's called Asheville Aggregates because Asheville's his middle name. But he's going to become known as Daniel Asheville now because he's got his own TV show on Discovery Channel. Right. But anyway, it's a great story. It's a proper rags to riches story. He was brought up in social housing, single parent family, and now he runs a fleet of about 40 trucks. He's got his own railhead. He's going places. But the most interesting thing about this guy, who incidentally he's an ex-model, a bodybuilder, he's doing wonders for the industry because he's got 500,000 followers on his YouTube channel. So he does a weekly show called Asheville. I think it's called Asheville Weekly. Yeah, 500,000 people tune in every Sunday, and he just talks about the trucks he's buying, the problems he's facing. So unlike me on Commercial Motor Magazine, where I'm preaching to the converted, he's actually telling 500,000 people what it's like to operate trucks in this country. So yeah, and it's a great way of attracting youngsters into the industry as well.
Absolutely,
he's a real role model.
That social industry interface, he's like right in the he's right at the guts of that, isn't he?
Exactly. And I was having a look at his YouTube figures. He's had 65 million hours of views, which is the equivalent of 7,500 years. So it's quite impressive, isn't it?
That is unbelievable. That's about as old as I feel. Yeah. And so you're going to do a story for us. You've been to see him, and you reckon we might be able to get him on the mic and have a yarn to him.
I reckon. Well, I've just done a podcast with him on my Talking Trucks channel. Got to check that out. It's Talking with a Q, by the way. Talking with a Q,
Talking Trucks.
Yep. But I'm sure he'll come on the radio and have a chat with you.
That's fantastic. And heading down the road of alternative propulsion, you went to visit a company called Welshs Transport, a family haulier of 90 years in the business, and they've just bought an electric Renault 19-ton truck, spent 50 grand on a supercharger. And what's the story there?
Yeah, so a proper traditional family haulier. I was with them yesterday, funny enough. They've run ERFs over the years, and they switched to Renault about 10, 15 years ago. Love the brand. In fact, they've got a service. They're a service agent for Renault now. They bought what was the first electric Renault in the country, but it spent rather a long time in the bodybuilders. It was there for about 6 months, so it wasn't the first on the road. But the interesting thing that happened, whilst it was at the bodybuilder, and the bodybuilder was training their technicians to work on the truck, because they hadn't had one before, the batteries went flat. Now, you'd think that wouldn't be an issue, but they went so flat that they couldn't get them charged again. So they had to send a specialist over from Renault in France and he described it as the equivalent of a defibrillator for trucks. And he got the truck back to life, but one of the 4 batteries was knackered.
Yeah.
So they needed to get a new battery at the cost of, I think it was £35,000 for one battery. It was covered by Renault, but it just shows you that these first companies that are going for electric, it's a real learning curve. They're discovering issues all the time.
Yeah, and it's really an interesting discussion point, isn't it, for companies that are just dipping their, like experimenting with it like that. We've got a great example here, a company called Reliance Transport in Auckland, and the Darragh brothers that own that company, they are just, and it's an incredible story. I'll send it over to you to have a read, because they get it and they're fully immersed in it, and they're doing the charging thing and they're doing the electrical capture thing, and they are completely and utterly non-persuadable on the fact that we're going somewhere, that this is the future. And they have got a project called Project Switch, where they intend to make their entire company zero carbon. And it's a fantastic story. And if you meet the brothers, fantastic guys, just sort of guys you just spend all afternoon with, no trouble at all. But they present as, well, they are. Their dad was a transport operator, and they present as old school operators, the check shirt, work boots, blah, blah, blah. And man, if you try and challenge them on the EV thing, they'll just fire the answers back at you, stats, data. They'll just absolutely incinerate you. Yeah. Fantastic story. I'll send it over if you'd have a read. It'll be a great one for you to have a read of, to get like the other side of the argument.
Yeah, great. No, I'd be interested in that. So often you go and see these companies who've bought an electric truck, and they really talk the talk, but they don't necessarily walk the walk, because after the interview, they're getting their diesel Range Rover and drive off, or talk about their Bentley or their Porsche they've got in the garage. But this guy, he runs an electric Jag. He's had electric cars for the last few years. Let me tell you something else that was quite interesting. He's talking about getting several of these electric Renaults. But the insurance companies told him he can't park them close to each other because it's a fire risk, and you wouldn't want it spreading from one to the other.
Because the trucks are so valuable, or because the fire will be too big?
I'm guessing a bit of both.
Yeah.
But he's been told, he knows going forward, he'll have to double the size of his yard just to park up the truck, so there's a big enough gap between them all.
Far out, is that right? That is amazing. Far out. Well, they can plant trees in the gaps between the trucks and actually sequester more.
That's right.
Speaking of Bentleys, Porsches, and Ferraris, you're going to drive an Austin Allegro in the months ahead. And when I saw that in the pace notes that you sent me, I was like, so my dad used to work at Hauraki Plains Motors years ago, which were the Austin Morris dealer, mate. So I have I have an association with Austin Allegros, like I have an association with the wart on my buck cheek. So that will be the highlight of your year, won't it?
To be honest, I had one when I was 17, so I'm looking forward to getting behind the wheel again.
I can still see the effects.
Truly awful car with that Quartic steering wheel. God. Now, what it is, I'm doing quite a bit with the Metropolitan Police, their commercial vehicle unit. In fact, they were over at the Brisbane show.
Right.
Anyway, I've asked if I can do a story on they've got a 1978 Land Rover commercial, and I was going to do sort of a head-to-head with one of their new Mitsubishi L200s. And they said, well, we've got lots of classic cars on the fleet and all. Do you want to come and have a drive? So, yes, please. So I've got the Electro. But the one I'm really looking forward to, they got a Rover SD1 3.5 litre. That would be nice.
Yeah, that'll.
I think there's a Triumph 2.5 as well.
Like a Walkinshaw touring car, racing car with lights on it.
Yeah, that's right.
So the thing is, like, if you're a geezer and you just ripped off the local bank on the corner and the Rozzers were chasing you in an Allegro, you'd back yourself to get away, really, if you'd on a push bike, wouldn't you?
That's right.
Speaking of getting away from it all, the ultra low emission zone in London. Now, there's a few more hearty penalties coming your way if you want to drive your good motor, my son, in the low emission zone.
Yeah, that's right. And well, for instance, all those cars I just mentioned, they'd all be £12.50 a day now to drive in London.
£12.50 a day to drive it in London.
Yeah. So we've had a ULEZ in the centre of London for several years, but what the London Mayor is doing as of next week is extending it to all the boroughs. So that this affects millions of people. And if your car is Euro 4 or newer, sorry, if your petrol car is Euro 4 or newer, you're okay. And for diesel, Euro 6 is okay. But anything older than that, it's £12.50 a day just to move your car. And it's criminal how many perfectly good cars have been scrapped, or of course, if they've still got a value, being sold elsewhere in the country. My dad's a prime example. He does 2,000 miles a year. He's got a Vauxhall Amiga, 1997 Vauxhall Amiga, which I think you had as a Holden Commodore.
Yeah.
This thing will outlive him. He's in his mid-80s, you know, but he's going to have to scrap it now because he can't pay £12.50 a day each time he goes up to the shops in it. And the stupid thing, I'm talking to you now for my I've got a Jag, 4-litre V8. I've got two cars. This is the only one that's compliant. So I'll be going to the office every day in a 4-litre V8, which completely defeats the whole purpose.
So how do they administer that? How do they comply that? Like, how do they know
There's
if you
cameras everywhere.
Oh,
cameras are absolutely everywhere. Although there's a lot of people removing them, which obviously is a bad thing. I encourage that at all. But no. But
so do they come around? If they like take your dad? Okay, let's talk about your dad. He's got his Vauxhall Amiga, and he's in the street. So has someone visited him with a clipboard and taken a notice of his car, or they just know from the registration data?
They would have seen it in one of the cameras, and he'd have had a letter saying, "We've noticed your car doesn't comply. As of the whatever date it is, you need to start paying £12.50 every day."
Holy moly! And like you know, your dad's not going to go out and buy a Euro 6 diesel or his age and stage. He's not going to upgrade his car to an EV or something, is he?
There's a scrappage scheme which is worth £2,000, but that's to put towards a new car. And the kind of person who drives a car of that age isn't the sort of person who goes out and buys a brand new electric car.
No.
And of course, this applies to vans as well. You've got tradesmen might only do a few thousand miles a year. They're just driving to a job. But that's it. It's £12.50.
Well, that's just going to be
stories as well.
That's just going to be inflation on your tradie bill, isn't it? Like if you get a plumber around, he'll start at $12.50 or £12.50, and then start as normal charges, won't he?
That's right. It's just a license to print money. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to clean up the air, then let's do it properly. Just ban all those cars instead of charging them £12.50. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's just a con.
And so, so how much bigger is the ULEZ zone now? Because like when we've done articles on it before from you and things like that, and looked into it, like it's been just sort of like CBD stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know the area, but I don't know if you can picture the M25. That's a 125-mile circle around London, and it's just about everything within that, including Heathrow Airport.
Holy heck! So that's okay. So it's basically got all of Greater London now.
Yeah, and of course you've got people like me. I live a few miles outside the zone, but the office is inside the zone, and I'm travelling in and out all the time.
So do BOAC get charged £12.50 for every plane that takes off?
Good question. Heathrow have opted into it. They're actually outside the zone, but they've actually chosen to opt in, which is nice of them.
So how will it affect? Because we know that like the ULEZ zone in London has been the home of super clean trucks, but surely you're going to have lots of tractors and semis feeding into the outskirts of London that'll cross into the zone to DCs or something, or they'll get inside. Like, are they all £12.50 for every in and out? Is it?
It's applied to trucks for quite some time already. So that zone already existed for trucks.
Right.
So the only new thing here now is for vans and cars.
Right. Okay, man. So they're really getting into it. They're going to earn millions.
They say it only affects 1 in 10 cars, but I mean that's rubbish.
Nah,
absolute rubbish.
Yeah. Nah. Oh well, good times, good times. We'll look forward to the article on Daniel, and we'll look forward to talking to Daniel maybe, and we'll look forward to catching up with you in another month or so, or another couple of months, and see what
sounds good.
There'll be a big pile of derelict cars on the outskirts of London.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, mate.
Yeah, the banger racers are picking up some great deals.
I'll bet they are. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, mate, great to talk to you as always. Good to see you in fine health and pedal. And take care. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.